In a minute, I'm going to be speaking to Andy Williams and quizzing him a little bit about living in Thailand on the insurance side. So, Andy, are you there?
I'm here. Hi, Simon.
Hi there. Good to chat to you. And by the way, we are not brothers. I'm seeing we've got Andy Williams and Simon Williams on the screen now, but um, no, just coincidence. Williams not being the most original name. Neither is Andy, neither is Simon. So there's probably a few of us out there in the world.
Yeah.
So, what I'm going to quiz you in a minute is about people perhaps turning up in hospital here in Thailand and not being covered. So, let me show the graphic on screen here, the title. So, yeah, I just want to quiz you about that. Before I do, I'm just going to hit a little jingle, our little CNX intro. So yeah, I just wanted to basically ask you, presumably there must be situations, and I know that there's lots of different insurance companies out there, of course, and I guess the better insurance companies are accepted by more hospitals, but there must have been a situation or two where someone's actually turned up at the hospital with an injury or an accident or an illness or disease or whatever it might be, and only for then the hospital to actually say, oh, I'm very sorry, we don't accept that type of insurance. Has that ever happened?
That can happen. Yeah, there might be smaller companies that the hospital's going to say we don't recognise that insurance, so that could potentially slow things down. So yeah, it does happen from time to time. But
And
yeah, I mean,
what happens then? So they've got into the hospital. Do they? I guess they book themselves in. Is it at that moment that they would discover that, or would they only find out later on?
it would be at the moment that you hand over your insurance card, and they'll come back to you very quickly, and then they'll say whether they accept the insurance or not.
Okay.
I mean, in ideally, how it should work is you would hand over your insurance card. Your card would then go to their insurance department. They will make a call to the insurer, and then the insurer will start dealing directly with the hospital, and then you won't hear another thing. You'll leave the hospital, and then your bill will be covered. But yeah, from time to time, you do go to the hospital, and they might not recognise the insurance, or for sometimes they do recognise the insurance, and it still doesn't work.
Okay. So what do you do then? I mean, in that situation, if you're not completely debilitated, do you literally get in a taxi and go down the road to the next hospital, or can you Google which hospitals you can go to for that insurance provider? I mean, how do you deal with it?
I think there's no easy way around it really, because we're in Thailand, and a lot of people they might use international insurance. So it's that's where I would recommend having a broker,
Right.
because you've got someone local that you can call up, and providing they know what they're talking about, they'll be able to get to the bottom of it, and sort the problem out. And quite often, I mean, you mentioned, would you go to another hospital? Well, if you're already in that hospital, and you might be quite badly injured,
Mm.
you kind of haven't really got a lot of choice. You're
Yeah.
there.
I mean, that'd be like the worst case scenario, right? I mean, you've paid your money for your insurance and you're effectively not covered. I mean, I think like I can't be the only person that's kind of sometimes nervous of insurance because, particularly in the UK, I've had some bad experiences where I, thought I had a sort of very obvious claim, and to find their sort of strange loopholes and sub clauses. I remember the one that springs to mind was on a ski holiday, and I'd put my skis outside a cafe or something, and popped in and got myself a bottle of water or something. Came out and the skis had been stolen. Tried to make a claim later and found out I wasn't covered because I wasn't wearing the skis at the time. And it's like,
Right.
really? Like, it's hard to someone to steal your skis whilst you're wearing them.
Oh,
Um, and
yeah.
yeah, that was kind of. I bet there must be other stories like that. So people can be sort of nervous
Yeah.
of insurance.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's worth pointing out that there's a distinct difference between what you would have had there as a travel insurance
Mm.
policy. I think typically people here who are looking to cover themselves against an illness or an injury, you just have a health insurance policy. Now, when you look at a travel insurance policy, there's quite a lot of small print in those, and I think it's probably travel insurance policies actually that tend to give insurers a bad name. But yeah, I mean, here I've seen it or heard of many times when someone goes to hospital, they hand over their insurance card, and then the insurance says, the hospital says, we don't accept this insurance, or they might come back to you and say, we do accept this insurance, but we've been calling the insurer, but they're just not answering the phone. Now,
you look a little bit skeptical.
I mean, I think Thai hospitals are amazing. It's great the way you can go in and get treatment straight away, and cost-wise, it's a lot more cost-effective here, and you get great treatment. However, there are businesses, and the way they're run is that they would prefer to get paid up front, cash from you, rather than deal with an insurance company. So I do kind of feel slightly skeptical that when you're told we've tried to call the insurer but they're not answering the phone, I think someone's kind of slowing things up, Okay. So you'll put your hand in your pocket and say, right, do you know what? I'll just pay you first, and then I'll deal with the insurance company afterwards. And it's quite commonplace that happens.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that's undesirable because you've then got all the hassles. I don't know how easy. I guess sometimes it's relatively straightforward to basically get your money back later, and I'm sure other times it's a more disputed, and you've probably got to kind of fight your way through that process, which is the last thing you want to have to deal with.
Yeah, I mean if you're in hospital, you're there, you're feeling vulnerable, you want to get treatment, and then you're told that your insurance they can't get hold of your insurance company. We're trying to do everything we can to help you. Obviously, that's quite a disconcerting time. But that's where it's a good idea, considering you might have an international insurance that's perhaps based. It's not based in this country. It's based in the UK. It might be based in France or the US. If you have a broker and a good broker, they'll know exactly what to do. And I've seen it many times, and been able to make a few calls, and then all of a sudden, the same nurse that came in and said to you, we don't accept your insurance, 10 minutes later will come back in and say, we've received a call, and it turns out that we do accept
That's
your
crazy.
insurance.
That seems crazy to me. I mean, I don't know, it can't be that. I mean, I'm sure there are some insurance companies out there, but I don't know if it's 10, 20 or 100, I don't know, but it's not thousands, and presumably they've got a list of who they'll deal with and don't, and it should be sort of black and white. I'm amazed that there's I'm amazed that there's a phone call to the insurance company before they decide, is it about that particular injury that decides if they will accept it through that insurance company? Is it a bit more nuanced?
Yeah, I mean, there will be a list. Like each hospital will have a list of insurers that they immediately accept.
Okay.
And anything outside of that list, that's perhaps where they might kind of slow things up, and perhaps it's just the hospital thinking, look, we don't want to deal with the insurance company. We just want to get paid up front here. I think that's all it comes down to, really.
I guess when you realise, as you said, it's almost uncomfortable to think of it this way, but they are just businesses, and like the car mechanic down the road, if he could get your credit card out of you at the start, it does work, rather than at the end, that would be a preference to him, right? I mean, I think in England, because we're so used to the NHS and the idea of this sort of free, at least at the point of service, sort of treatment. It's nice to think of it. They are all businesses. Even NHS is a business to a degree, so it makes sense. But it's just slightly uncomfortable sort of position to even think about it in those sort of terms at the time. So you presumably have had these phone calls probably from people that are in not the best situation emotionally and physical. They've had an injury or a disease or something, not the easiest time. I imagine you've had a few challenging conversations in that situation.
I have, yeah. I mean, one case in particular was it was very stressful.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, this is, bearing in mind that this particular person is a personal friend of mine as well, so I know them very well. So it had an accident. He was injured. He was in hospital and he needed some treatment immediately, and then was told we don't accept this. No, he wasn't told we don't accept this insurance. He was told we accept this insurance, but we've called the insurer and they're not answering. They're not answering the phone, which I happen to know they have this particular insurer has a very good service with answering the phone. So I got involved. I called up the insurer and they said we haven't even received a call from them. And the insurer they record everything at their end.
Yeah,
so,
they have to. Yeah,
so
sure.
I know that call wasn't made. And then once I got involved and spoke to the insurer, no word of lie. I think within 15 minutes, the nurse was back in the room and said, "Good news, we've spoken to the insurer and everything's going to be covered." But in that 15-minute period, this guy who was a good friend of mine, he was shouting.
Was that him on the phone then? Was that him on the phone phoning you up?
Might have been him on the phone.
So I'm sorry to interrupt you. What happened?
So he's shouting and screaming at me on the phone, and I said to him, "Please trust me." And I totally understand because it was quite a nasty injury. And when you're in hospital, you have doctors and nurses around you. You typically feel that they're going to take care of you, and so you kind of tend to believe what they're saying more so. And then when he spoke to me, I just said to him, I said, I promise you, I will get this sorted out. I spoke to the insurer. They called up the hospital, and then that was the end of it.
Yeah, I think I would feel the same way if a nurse or doctor or somebody representing the hospital said X. I probably wouldn't sort of investigate it, and I just would assume that's a non-debatable thing. Okay, if someone says, "Oh, we've not been able to contact the insurer," or "You're not covered," I'd be like, I probably wouldn't question it, which is probably the wrong thing for me to do. So I guess there's a little bit of a message here that if someone was to end up in that situation, they have got insurance, they end up in a hospital, Thai hospital, and they hand over, and someone says that to them, sure, I'd be annoyed, but give your representative, your agent, if you have one, a phone call. That's when they come really into their own and can provide that sort of service. And I guess in a way that's what you're paying them for. So in their sort of slightly disputed situations, that agent is going to help you through that situation. Just as you said, you've gotten them onto the phone and spoke with them, and just a few minutes later, effectively, it was resolved. Yeah,
no, absolutely. Because, like I say, I think typically a lot of people tend to have international insurance. So, if you're in that situation, you're in the hospital, they've told you we don't accept this insurance or we can't get hold of the insurer. You're kind of laying in a hospital bed waiting for treatment, feeling vulnerable. The last thing you want to do is the idea of having to phone up the UK or the US.
Yeah.
But if you've got that local broker, you just make that call to the broker, and whether you shout and scream at them or whether you're calm and say to them, please, I need some help. Yeah. If that broker knows their stuff, they will be able to resolve the situation for you. No problem.
And please don't shout at poor Andy.
I mean, actually, you know what? Actually, I just sort of just remembered one particular situation where I'd gone back to the UK, and I remember it was New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
And there's a 7-hour time difference between the UK and Thailand, and I think it was just coming up to midnight, and I got a phone call from Thailand, and I answered it. And it was someone in that situation in hospital, and they were saying to him, "We will not accept your insurance," and they said, "You must pay cash." And I felt bad for him because it was a very stressful situation, and it took me a while to help him out and work out what was going on. But actually, what had actually happened was, because it was New Year's Eve, they'd given the international insurance desk the night off.
Oh.
So there was no one there to deal with the claim.
Oh, wow, really?
So it was put on one of the nurses who made the decision to say, we're just going to have cash from you and we won't accept your insurance.
Oh, ouch.
And then probably sort of 12 hours later, once they come back on shift, everything was resolved.
Wow. Okay. So don't get an injury or illness on New Year's Eve. Okay, good to know. Just probably when the peak injuries actually happen, I'm sure. Ironically. And just as a side point, is all this sort of situation and possible challenge also possible in the case of like a personal accident when you've got personal accident insurance?
Yeah, I mean, personal accident insurance is different. I mean, personal accident insurance is actually really great because it's a local insurer,
Right.
and by the nature of it, if you walk into hospital and you've got a broken arm, unless you've been out in some street brawl or something like that, which is unlikely, they know that it's been an accident. So it's very easy to determine. They don't have to look at your medical records or, hold on, before we pay for this, we need to do a background check and make sure this isn't a pre-existing condition.
Yeah.
It's an accident. And then you have that accident card, you hand that over, and typically you'll be covered for around about 100,000 baht.
Right.
So it's like you've just handed them 100,000 baht. So they don't even need to make a phone call. They just see the card. They can see that it's check the validity of it.
Yeah.
They can see that it's active, and you'll receive treatment immediately.
Okay, well, that's quite comforting to know, because I think you had mentioned something about this before, so I just wanted to kind of raise it. So is there also, I think I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but is there a way to kind of check the insurance policy you've got and which hospitals do cover it? Is there, if you walked into hospital and someone said that and they couldn't reach their broker, their agent, maybe it's the middle of the night or something, they could go to a website and pull up a page and say, here it is, here's all the hospitals, and you're on it? Or do those pages kind of just not exist?
That would be, I would say, the easiest way of doing that is whatever insurer you have, you would ask the insurer, do you have a hospital network?
Right.
So you'd ask them, do you have a hospital network in Thailand? And, the international insurers anyway, you should be able to use any hospital.
Right.
But they will have maybe one or two hospitals that they have a closer connection with. Mm-hmm. So, it might be the Chiang Mai Ram or, and it just means that you can still use other hospitals, but it just means they've got a closer association with them, so they just recognise that insurance straight away.
And it just might make that side of it a bit smoother.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So that would be the way to check, And again, if you've got a broker, you ask your broker, and they'll get that information for you.
Okay, great. All right, I think that's really good information. I mean, for me, I don't always give insurance a lot of thought. So sometimes when you tell me these stories, I'm quite alarmed, to be honest. And it's kind of good to sort of educate myself a little bit more. And I'm sure not the only person that's perhaps didn't know some of this was a situation. So it's good to hear what the situation is, and perhaps the worst case scenario, don't be too alarmed. Pick up the phone, get your agent on the phone, and bit of luck, they can resolve the situation for you.
Absolutely.